In this video, traders, let's talk about developing that trader's feel. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining me. All right, so trader's feel, intuition, whatever you want to call it, right? How do we develop this? And I've done a few videos on this before. I'm going to try and approach it from maybe a different angle and maybe add some more experience to it now and seeing other traders and how they develop feel and this kind of stuff. So what is trader's feel first? Now, it's quite subjective that, but really I think that you can define trader's feel and intuition as just that gut feeling that the price is or isn't going to do something. Now, does that mean you can just trade from the gut and shoot from the hip and have a hunch and trade on it? No, it doesn't. But what it does mean is that somewhere in your subconscious, you're saying, hey, I've seen this movie before. I recognize this pattern. I'm going to trade this, or I'm going to just wait and see how this evolves. And something in you, you've taken in some piece of information. There's no real mystery to it at the end of the day. It's you taking in some piece of information that you can't quite put your finger on what it was, and you've reacted to that and you've adjusted potentially your approach to that. And I really think that you've kind of got this scenario where, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but why not? You've got this scenario here, okay, where this is all the stuff you need to make your trading decision. And here is where you take your trade, here is where you start and you think about your trade. And I think that you have this situation where a chunk of it is going to be binary, i.e., is the moving average above the price? Is the price in a trending environment? Do we have an exhaustion candle? Do we have a bullish engulfing? Are we X% away from the VWAP? Whatever you need to do. And these are all yes, no things. And they take you to this point here, okay, this point here. And you say, right, now I have a little bit left in me to decide whether to pull the trigger or not. And that area there is the trader's feel or trader's intuition. And I think at the beginning of your career, that should be very, very small. It should be a very little chunk, if any. To be honest, if any. You know, in fact, for the very beginning of your career, should be none. You should be taking these binary steps of, these are my filters, these are my triggers, I'm going to trade this when I see this, and that's that, and then start to gather some data. As you start to get some screen time together, then you go, okay, I can add a bit of intuition. I can decide whether I'm going to pull the trigger or not. I can make the decision a little bit more on the fly and be a little bit more flexible based on the information I've got in front of me. And then as you become more experienced, that grows and grows and grows. Now, you're still going to have some kind of binary decisions, binary yes or no answers on this flow chart of, okay, if this is doing this and this is doing that, then I'll look for a trade. But you know, this is a bit more dynamic in terms of intuition. So how do you develop that? How do you develop that? And I still believe that that is the true human trader's edge, right? I think that that is where we shine as traders. Being disciplined, you have to do that. Having a powerful strategy, you have to have that. But being able to adjust and adapt on the fly and with the right methodology is really where the juice is, I think. So how do you develop the trader's feel? Obviously screen time, guys. The more screen time you can get, the better. But it's focused screen time. It's not just sitting in front of the screen, just sitting there, coffee in one hand, a sandwich in the other, just looking. You're not going to learn anything from that. It's doing things like this, noting down your observations. So as the market comes to a key level, what do you see? Hey, I see that the price picks up a little bit in pace. I see that, you know, when we stall, and very often we do this, and we kind of fake out first, come back, retest, and then we get a big rush up. And when we get a big rush up, that seems to be more likely that we break out. So these little subtleties and nuances, you start to note them down and you start to build this. And, you know, noting down isn't necessarily something you're going to go back to and review, but what it is just helps you take it from the mind and put it onto paper. Obsess over the details. So I really think that you thinking and really drilling down into the nuances of what's happening and seeing, and if you're kind of someone who takes in the news into account, what does that mean? How does it react to the news? If you're just a price action trader, how are the higher time frames affecting the lower time frames? Just going into the nuances and the individual candles and really just kind of seeing if there's anything to see, you'll see it. Because even if you don't see it on that initial scan, over time you'll go, that went into my mind. I remember that. I remember there was when we had a big bar like that to the downside, after it being a big gap up, that we often did this, and you might be able to go back and look at it, but even if you don't, you start to build a little bit of a picture. Watch the tape charts in real time. And these are probably the two together, to be honest with you. So watching stuff in real time, there's no substitute for that, because we can all go back and look through charts and yeah, fine, we can get some kind of way of doing it and some kind of insight from that, but we can't really get the biggest, truest picture than when it's developing in real time. So we can use the replay feature. TradingView's got a great replay feature. Other charting platforms got a great replay feature, but it still doesn't really substitute for stuff in real time, although it's reasonable replay stuff. And what you want to do with this is, you know, I think the mistake that, again, I've made this mistake myself, is we sit there looking at the screens with an objective to trade, and that's fine under certain conditions, but sometimes it's just sitting in front of the screens with the objective to learn and observe. And so this is, you know, really good habit to get into, say, hey, I'm just going to watch this market today, or I'm just going to watch how it responds to the close, or I'm going to watch how it responds to that prior day's high. I'm not interested in taking a trade here. I just want to observe. Because when you take the burden of making a trading decision off your shoulders, you then come into, you look at it through a completely different lens. You look at it through a learning lens, an observation lens, a study lens, a how can I improve lens, noting down little nuances rather than, is it a trade, isn't it a trade, where's my stop going to be, where's my target going to be, and the kind of having that pressure there, it just allows you to learn and absorb the tape, the nuances, the chart feel much more. So that's worth structuring time in to do. I spend a lot of time just looking at stuff. I'm like, hey, this might be a setup, it's not really my thing, but I'm still going to observe it. I still want to watch and see, hey, it's earnings on this. I want to see how it's performed. I'm not really interested in trading this because the daily chart's not quite what I'm after, but I just want to see, you know, how do we get, what happens when this gap up? What happens when we pull back to the VWAP after this? Or maybe I'm like, I'm done for the day on the NASDAQ, you know, I'm still going to watch that closing bell just to see whether we do get that suck into the VWAP or whatever it may be. And so I think that's super, super important. It develops that trader feel. So it's more screen time, it's focused screen time, noting down your observations and being obsessive over the details. Those things combined help you build that trader feel. Take care, keep your risk managed. See you in the next one. Goodbye.